Hey everybody, so I'm going to be filming my very first reaction video, so let's see how this goes. Let's do it. Hey everyone, it's nice to see you back. My name is Njeri from ONYX Pages. It is February 8th, 2020, and it has been some time since I have sat down in front of a camera, in this case my iPhone, and just talked to you about where things are at with this channel. So in fact, I don't even know that I've ever done that before. So I wanted to just give you a sense of what's happening for me right now and what my plans are for 2020. I started Booktube in August of 2017. We were actually on our honeymoon, Tommy and I, when we were in a forest in British Columbia, just talking about being married, and I felt like, things were new and exciting, and I wanted to do a whole bunch of new and exciting things in addition to being married to this wonderful woman. And I was like, I should start a channel called ONYX Pages. And so Tommy, being the awesome person that she is, was like, sure, let's spend some of our honeymoon time with you filming the Booktube newbie tag. It should be called the NewTube tag, actually. Yeah, so I was there and we were in the park, and I didn't know what this journey would be like. All I knew was that I had a selfie stick and a phone, and I wanted to use it to connect to people and talk about science fiction and fantasy written by Black folks under the Afrofuturism umbrella. And it has been an incredible experience. I'm not leaving Booktube. Like, I know this might sound like a little nostalgic, and it is, but it's just to tell you where I'm at. And so much has happened as a result of me being a part of this community. First and foremost, I've read so much stuff. I used to read when I was younger, but then during law school and after becoming a lawyer, a lot of my intellectual space, a lot of my reading space was dedicated to that work. So I wasn't reading for pleasure. I do find case law pleasurable, but I wasn't reading fiction for pleasure anymore. And I thought that a Booktube channel would keep me accountable. And it has. It has exposed me to amazing stories. It's exposed me to amazing writers and artists and musicians and content creators and book reviewers. I myself have been challenged to do better as a reader, to read with purpose, to review honestly, and to push people to be, in particular Black queer folks, to become content creators, because I think that the work that Black queer folks do, those who dedicate their lives or a part of their lives to putting their imagination on paper and giving it to us, I think it's beautiful work, it's sacred work, and I think it deserves our money if we've got it to spend, and it deserves our time, and it deserves our attention. So I want to stop right there. I'm so glad that in that video I didn't just talk about my goals for 2020. I'm glad that I also talked about what brought me to Booktube and to provide a bit of an origin story. Obviously that hasn't changed, but I still believe what I said, no, it's not about me being dishonest in the past. I have the same views that I did almost a year ago around why I started the channel and what I want to do with this platform. And in particular, the comments about spending money and buying books written by Black folks and Black queer folks is something I actually want to speak on right now. Having come out of Kwanzaa, having started the new year, having taken some vacation time, my goddess, and having just some space to just think about how I want to spend my resources, and having just watched the Artisan Geeks video on quit buying books. She quit buying books. And thinking about the ongoing conversation on Booktube about consumerism, I want to just pause here a little bit and talk about that, because as you can see from my shelves, if you've been watching this channel since the very beginning, I've accumulated more books. I do hauls on my videos, many hauls, and I enjoy buying books. I enjoy collecting books. I enjoy reading books. And I would agree that with a comment that what Seiji said, which is that I think she was talking to her sister, and her sister said buying books and reading books are two different activities. And I absolutely agree with that. I very much enjoy the act of purchasing books. I love finding books and reading about them, like reading their synopses, looking at their covers, and then going out and buying them and receiving them in the mail. So that I really love. I love that because there's the instant gratification of spending money and buying books. I will not, and receiving it and owning things. I admit I enjoy that activity. But why do I enjoy that activity besides what it actually accomplishes? I definitely enjoy that activity because I'm a niche reader. So I am not just buying cute books. I am specifically buying a specific kind of book, or specific kinds of books written by very specific kinds of people. So about 95, maybe even more % of the books that I buy have been written by Black people, and many of those books have been written by Black queer people. The vast majority of my books are Black science fiction and fantasy, and I have an interest in purchasing vintage copies of books written by the same author. So I buy Black books because I am Black and my perspective matters, and my and when people write books who share my identities, I feel seen, and I want to read those books because I get pleasure when I read those books. And I spent most of my life reading books that were written by people who do not look like me, and people who didn't even imagine worlds where I would exist. Like my people were not in their books. So I don't buy books written by authors who don't imagine Black people, because that feels like imagination genocide, right? It's just like, I'm going to go out of my way to create a world where people like you don't exist. And that's not okay with me. As I say that, I have to reflect on myself. As I say that, I do need to become more intersectional in my reading. That's something that Tomi has encouraged me to do, that others have encouraged me to do. In the past year, I tried to make sure that the books that I read contemplated gender identity, in particular, and I still need to do that, and I also need to think more about disability representation in what I'm reading. So those are areas that I want to focus on within Black science fiction fantasy writing. The other reason that I buy books, and another reason that I feel pleasure when I buy the books that I buy, is that I know that on the other side of my purchase is a content creator, a writer, a cover artist, a narrator, maybe an independent publisher, who has made a leap of faith and said, you know what? I am going to write or publish or produce or draw the cover for or narrate this particular story
because someone out there is going to want to buy it, and someone out there is going to read it, and it's going to talk about it, and it's going to make them feel better. It will help them feel seen. It could be something that they pass down. So I want to honor that time, that energy, that generosity, that kindness, that futurism. I as a reader, I know that I am part of the imagined future of a writer, right? So when someone sat down 4 years ago and wrote a book, they imagined someone buying it and reading it and enjoying it and displaying it on their shelves. I'm that person. So as a reader, as a Black queer reader, I am the future of a writer's past, right? And so I'm okay with that. I'm okay with my coin going to Nnedi Okorafor or Nalo Hopkinson or Jazz Joyner or L.L. McKinney, or all the people. Like, I'm completely okay with that. And I will continue to do it. I will continue to buy books written by Black writers with a focus on Black queer writers, because I want them to write more books, because I want my imagination and more people's imagination to be filled with the characters that they create, so that we can believe that we can be like those characters, so that we can recognize that we already are those characters, and so that we can influence our nonfiction lives in ways that will bring us closer to the kinds of futures that we want. Like, it's very, very literal. I am wearing my Black Futures Month shirt on purpose for this. So that is what I have to say about that. Okay. Let's get back to channel goals.
Create a platform where I can talk about that. And I acknowledge that it has allowed me to take steps toward becoming a thought leader in the Afrofuturist community. Baby steps. So
now I want to talk about being a thought leader. You know what? Let me just look up the definition for thought leader, because it's a term that I learned 2 or 3 years ago and started paying attention to, and I thought, you know what? I want to be that, and I'm getting there. Some would say I am there. So a thought leader is an individual that is recognized as an authority in a specialized field and whose expertise is sought and often rewarded. They are often asked to speak at public events, to share their insights with a relevant audience. So I'm definitely an individual that's recognized as an authority in Black science fiction and fantasy on Booktube. People do reach out to me and ask me for recommendations and trust my reviews. And I am asked to speak at events and conferences in the Booktube community, in the literary community. So that's something that I claim. And I am wanting to continue to be better at that. So that's cool.
It's just been amazing. And so after I did the Kwanzaa Reflectathon in 2019, and I do have to announce the winners, I took a very, very, very long pause. I didn't intend to, because I was just doing my normal New Year's resolutions, reflecting on a year, but the end of a decade took me by surprise, and I realized that I really needed to sit down and think about why I'm here on this platform and why I'm doing the things that I do. And that reflection got me thinking about what I'd like to see this channel offer to the Booktube community and the wider community. And here's what I've come up with.
So before I talk about what I came up with, I did a similar thing, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in my channel goals video, but I did a similar thing this year, and I realized that because I run a reflectathon, no matter how big or how small the Kwanzaa Reflectathon is, it is time consuming and energy consuming. And especially this year, where I I had live shows every day for 7 days in a row, it took up a lot of time. And those 7 days are days when one would usually film your best of 2020, your anticipated reads, and so on. And here I am hosting a whole reflectathon. So it means that I need to think about how I spend my time in the last month of the year. And I'm basically like running a conference, like an online conference event. Like, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy during the holiday season. So when I should be relaxing, and when, I want to spend time with Tommy and my family and so on. So it is a wonderful time for reflection. It also means that my end of year videos don't happen at the end of the year. They happen in the new year. And I'm also okay with that. But it is something that I am appreciating as part of my rhythm, and going to make adjustments to in the way that I post.
I definitely want to read books. I specifically want to read books written by Black queer people that are within the speculative, science fiction, fantasy, magical realism realms.
Okay, so I will definitely say that I did read a lot of books by Black authors, but I did not focus enough on Black queer and non-binary authors in 2020. When I look at the books that I read, I think most of the writers that I read identify as heterosexual. And if not most, then close enough to 50% that it's not really, my reading last year didn't reflect my priority of supporting Black queer writers. And part of that is because of something that many content creators have talked about, which is the hype train, and the fact that, we get super, super excited about beautiful books, and then I get super excited about beautiful, wonderful books, and then it takes me off sort of my path, my course. So that is something that I am thinking more about and want to be a lot more mindful of. Also, reading Black and queer means that I will be reading more independently published books, right? I can just turn around. I know that right here is a book I need to read this year, Magnifique Noir, that's one. And then right over here, there are 2 graphic novels. Oh, where did I put them? Maybe they're not there. So 2 graphic novels by 2 queer women. I don't know where they are. Anyway, but this is an example of books written by queer people that I need to read, that I got last year, that I could have and didn't. So that's something else that it's over there. That's something else that I'm thinking about. It's The Witches. Sorry, now I'm gonna be all until I get it. So maybe I'll do a video actually on that, on Black queer books as priorities. So that's something I should note.
Those stories are the stories that excite me the most. I also want to lift up, in particular, writers who are independently publishing their work, or who are publishing work that the mainstream publishing community seems to be allergic to.
So, while I have definitely read work that was not traditionally published in 2020, I was very much attracted to books that were published by traditional publishers. So I'm a Penguin Teen influencer. I accept only books written by like science fiction and fantasy books, usually fantasy, usually YA fantasy. And so like that's a thing that I do, and so that obviously takes me away from independently published books. And frankly, independently published books are a little bit harder to find because the marketing machine isn't as large, right? There aren't as many resources to get on in front of readers all the time. So it takes more time to find those books. So that's something I need to be better at this year. And my shelves are a really great place to begin because there are many unread Black, queer, independently published books on my shelves that need to be read.
Those works of art are changing our conversations. They're changing the ways that we think about writing and the ways that we think about each other. And I think that right now, with all the things going on in the world, we need to support writers who are challenging the norm. We need to help them write full time to make enough money from their books that they can marshal their imagination and write these books full time. And to do that, we need to buy their books. We need to talk about their books. We need to buy their books. We need to support their books.
And in addition to that, because I stand everything that Njeri from February 2020 had to say, in addition to that, what I also need to do is think about reading secondary sources. So reading interpretive pieces that help me read better, right? And I'm wondering whether it might be a good idea for me to spend the first month of the year reading nonfiction interpretive works that will help me read the fiction works better.
So I want to get better at reviewing books. I want to review more books. I want to read more books. And I understand that being a niche reader means that I'm not going to be as broadly read as folks on Booktube, but I trust that the depth of my reading will add value to this community, and I know that it already has. I've seen content creators on YouTube who are starting to read and sharing their reading more often than their regular content. I've seen Booktubers identify Afrofuturism and Black science fiction and fantasy as their priority in the past couple of years, and I'm glad that I have been a part of that shift in the community. So I'm proud of that, and I want more of us to be talking about this work.
And I will say that there are a lot more content creators reading and writing and posting about Black speculative fiction, Afrofuturism, African futurism, Black science fiction and fantasy. And while these content creators don't read this work exclusively, except for a few, it's definitely something that I'm seeing more.
I also want to develop stronger relationships with Booktubers in the Booktube community. There are definitely people.
Okay, so that I have definitely done this year. So this past year, I developed a lot of really great relationships with people in Booktube, and some of whom have become in real life friends. I took the risk and said, you seem really interesting. I love what you read. You're really funny. Do you want to be friends? And everybody that I asked was basically like, yes. And while I'm not the most consistent in my communications, because sometimes I fall out of contact for weeks, months, I have made some really strong friendships because of Booktube, and that makes me really happy.
There are definitely people who I connect with over WhatsApp, love y'all, over Twitter and now Instagram. I'm sort of, I didn't grow up around social media, so I'm sort of new learning how it all works. And I'm also sometimes hella inconsistent in my communications. So I'm enjoying the relationships that I built, and I just want to be more consistent around those personal relationships because I have to thank Booktube. Booktube has opened the door to some incredible relationships, and I'm so grateful that I now have in my daily life people who I admire, people who are go-getters, people who inspire me to do more with this platform and do more with my own life. And it's incredible. I also, what else do I love about Booktube and what do I want to do? These aren't really 2020 goals, but just thoughts that I've had. One thought that I've had over the past month is the fact that I am a book collector. I own that. I am a collector of books. There have been a lot of conversations on Booktube about consumerism and buying books versus going to the library and amassing large quantities of books and maybe not reading those books at the rate that we're buying those books. And Tommy and I have talked about my little book buying situation, my little budget situation. And I own it. I collect books. I collect books written by Black folks. I buy them. I buy multiple copies. I give some copies away when I can. But I enjoy going to used bookstores and asking them if they have any Nello Hopkinson or Octavia Butler or Nnedi Okorafor or N.K. Jemisin or Nisi Shaw or Andrea Hairston or Jennifer Marie Brissett or Yatasha Womack or Bolita Imarisha or Adrienne Marie Brown or Alexis Pauline Gums or Tanana Reeve Dew or Steve Barnes or Samuel R. Delaney. Like, I love going into bookstores and asking them, do you have these things? And then buying them if I can, and then shipping them off to people or sharing them with friends who tell me that they're interested in reading this work. I feel that if I have the means to purchase, which I sometimes do and I presently do, and I can share that work with people, then that means more people get their hands on these books. And I get the pleasure of sharing amazing work so that these authors can make money and write more. So.
Okay, that was a very abrupt transition. So now I'm buying beer. Okay, we can do that. All right, I guess that's it. So that was my video. This is going to be a monster to edit, but I really, I just want to reflect now that I've had an opportunity to hear what I said. The goals weren't very enumerated, but I was sort of just reflecting on 2019. So now I'll reflect on 2020. 2020 was an incredible year. It was very challenging, obviously, because of just a lot of the harm experienced by Black communities and Black queer individuals it's not just last year, but in general. And because of the stay-at-home orders and because of the social and physical distancing caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, I had a lot more screen time and was paying more attention to the news. And that meant that all this stuff that was happening was very front and center. So if books weren't my escape hatch earlier, they certainly have become that for me, because I have been prone to wanting to disappear into the world of the fantastic because everything that's been happening now has been really, really, really challenging. At the same time, being at home more allowed me to spend more time with my wife, allowed me to spend more time with my friends, allowed me to spend more time with my family. I worked on my family tree, like just a lot of really interesting things I was able to do last year as a result of all of the time that I spent at home. So I'm proud of that. I also am so proud of the ways that I've contributed to the global reading community. And I want to just take a minute to acknowledge myself, and then talk about why I think that's important. So this year, at the beginning of the pandemic, I created Quarantined Pages, which was an event that had us reading together silently 1 hour a day for 5 months with 8. We had, I think, in total about 8 or 9 or 10 co-hosts, and it was featured in, like international media, including Steve Colbert and The Observer and Forbes and BBC and CBC and probably other media networks that we weren't aware of. People are still DMing and asking if Quarantine Pages is going on. And so that was amazing. And the team was amazing. People brought their different strengths, their passions, their desires, their frustrations, their fatigue. And it was a really incredible growth experience for me. And I'm very grateful to everybody who contributed their time to be a part of that experience. That was 5 months. That was almost half a year that we did that. That's incredible. It's the longest ever read-along that Booktube has seen in its history. And I did it. Like, I created it. I collaborated with other people, but it was an idea that I had, that I saw to fruition. The other piece is the Octavia E. Butler slow read, which was an idea that I had because I was sitting down and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I would love to read. I have to read all of Octavia Butler's books. It's been decades since I touched them, and I've forgotten some of the stories. I want to get up again. I want to get up into them again because as I read more like recent works, I want to be able to recognize when they've borrowed from or engaged with Octavia Butler's work. And then right after thinking, I want to do this myself, I was like, I want to read with other people. I want to read with Tatiana because Tati loves Octavia Butler and I love Tati. And so I want her to be a part of that journey. And then I was like, oh my gosh, Isis. Isis has SistahSciFi and Isis reads a lot and Isis is brilliant and Isis runs a Black queer bookstore. And so people will buy books from SistahSciFi. Also buy your books from SistahSciFi. So why not like make a team of 3 people and do this thing? And so we did it, right? And so those 2 events this year that were like personal innovations of mine, so wonderful. As well as I'm doing a vision board workshop inspired by Octavia Butler's work, and that's going to be January 16th. And I wanted to host a vision board workshop for so long, and all of my insecurities said you can't do it and whatever, and now I'm finally doing it, and I'm really proud of that. So the reason why I'm talking about these 3 things is because sometimes Black women don't get the credit for what we do, and sometimes we take credit for what other people do. I've done it. People have done it to me. It happens. And as you know, if you look at the history of Black inventions, whether it's medical, scientific, technological, spiritual, many of our creations are taken by either each other, most often by other people, whether it's how we braid our hair, whether it's how we speak, how we dance, and the things that we come up with, right? We Black peoples are innovative and creative and powerful. And so it is very, very important to me that when somebody does something, that we honor that person. And in particular, when that person's a Black person. If you got an idea because you saw a Black person do the thing somewhere else, you need to credit that person, right? If you read a book because somebody recommended it, you credit that person. If you got an idea for a series on your channel because someone else has been reading that kind of work, then you credit that person, right? So when I created the Back from Booknet Fest tag, I said, I created this because I was watching Kathy Tried Art and she created the Booknet Fest tag. And every time I talk about the Back from Booknet Fest tag, I say, this was inspired by Kathy, right? When I talk about starting my channel, I say, I watched Audrey. I was inspired by Audrey, and then Perpetual Pages inspired me, and then ONYX Pages happened. There's a direct correlation. There's a direct link. And there are so many examples of people who have done amazing, incredible things. And I do my best. I'm not perfect. I fail sometimes. But I do my best to say, I am inspired by this person. I've done this particular thing, right? And I look at people around me who themselves are content creators, and I see the way that they've influenced people. I see the way Brittany at Melanin Eclectic has influenced our entire community. Brittany was the one who created book looks, where you take the cover of a book and you create a makeup look based on that cover. Brittany did that. It's Brittany's creation. So when other people do book looks, they are continuing the legacy that she started. It's important to recognize that she did that, you know? And Dee Dee at Brown Girl Reading with Read So Lit was the first booktuber who consistently created content that was related to Black History Month, right? And so you can come, baby. So whenever there is any kind of like read-along, read-a-thon, challenge, or anything related to Black History Month on our platform, we need to remember who did it first, and how that, even if you didn't know that that person did it, recognizing that the fact that they did it opened the door, right? So that you could continue to do this work, or that you're part of a legacy. That's really important to remember, that we are part of each other's legacies, living legacies. So it's important to share that credit. So I get frustrated when that doesn't happen in the community. I get frustrated when it doesn't happen with me. I get frustrated when I don't do that with other people. And so it's an important thing. So that's why I'm just saying, like, I'm really proud of myself for Quarantined Pages. I'm proud of, and the name Noria came up with that name, which was amazing. And even this, like, the hashtag Reading Apart Together, that was Oshalay's creation. So just a lot of like amazing creative stuff that happened in 2020 happened in that sort of evolving collaborative way. What else? I'm talking about what I did in 2020 that I'm proud of on YouTube. Any ideas?
I don't know what you said, so I don't know what to say. Are you talking about?
I talked about Quarantine Pages, and I talked about just things that I'm excited about on my channel, like wins, reflections.
Talk about the collaboration with Evelyn.
I was just about to talk about that.
Okay.
So in terms of like collaborations, I'm super excited about the collaboration with Evelyn from the internets. I've talked about it. This happened fairly recently, so I'm not going to get into it too much because I obviously talk about it in other places. But Evelyn is a YouTube content creator, among other things, right? Evelyn is an actor. Evelyn is a comedian. Evelyn is a writer. And it's been amazing. It continues to be amazing to collaborate with her, and it was a dream of mine to, like, when I started watching her channel, I never thought that we would be collaborating, right? I was just like, wow, she's amazing. Right? And so now we're collaborating, which is really cool. So that happened in 2020. And yeah, just great things. My channel grew. I think at the beginning of the year I was at maybe 3,000 subscribers. No, I was at 1,500 at the beginning of last year, because I remember when I got to 4 and I had a little party. And so now it's over 8,000 subscribers, and I'm very thrilled with that growth, and I would like to see more in 2021. So I'm gonna probably end here. This has been a long, chatty video that is going to be a monster to to edit. So as a parting thought, goodbye 2020. Learned a lot, grown a lot, and 2020 has helped me sow the seeds for an incredible next year. So if you've watched this video all the way to the end, I would like you to, you know what, why don't you just put in any kind of icon for anything that inspired you in 2020. It can be anything. I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to hear about the things that you did that made you proud in 2020, whether it's books that you read, whether it's content that you created. What did you innovate? What inspired you in 2020? Love to hear about that. And I am going to shout out Caleb. Cabe Jackson is one of my favorite new booktubers, and they are just so sweet, so smart, so funny, so vulnerable. And I want all of us to subscribe to Cabe's channel. I will put a picture of Cabe there. I will put a card up here or up here. I'm not sure what side it's going to come up on. And also I'm going to put their channel in the description box. So please do go out and subscribe to their channel, because I think that the content that Cabe makes is really wonderful, and I want to support Cabe continuing to post, continuing to grow and develop their platform. So remember to read with purpose. I will see you in my next video. Bye. Also a thing that is important to me. I think, wondering if I should, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. This can be a chatty video. I think I'm gonna start over, but it's not a real reaction if I don't start over, if I start over. Oh, these are hard. I'm just gonna keep going.